Oh, I'm seeing spots on the newly detailed Corvette.
Yeah, we didn't detail it.
That's why I'm seeing spots on the newly detailed, not Corvette.
Yeah. No, we walked around it all weekend long. We polished the glass.
Oh, that's right. You guys are doing glass polishing.
Yeah, I've actually got to detail it. That's tomorrow's project.
Ah, well, you know what they say, a busy man's never bored.
Yeah, I'm never bored.
Hello, thank you all for tuning in for episode 47. We're racking these up. And like always, I'm going to do my little spiel. If you haven't liked, subscribed, or hit the bell, please do so. Share with your friends. Let everybody know. And also don't forget about the $10,000 giveaway that we're giving. I will have a slide up towards the end explaining that. And you can also get information down in the description down below. So if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, all you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's that simple. So, cue the truck.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you never can fail when you're getting ready to do something. Cue the lawn people, cue the truck, cue somebody with an alarm.
Leaf blower.
Leaf blower, yeah, you name it, we do it. So I see you have tons of rotary polishers up here. So
Yep.
what are you going to teach everybody today?
We're going to talk about rotary polishers and I think I'm just going to do a brain dump. You know, just everything that's up here. I probably have more how-to articles on the rotary polisher than anybody breathing, and to find them all you got to do is type in how to use rotary polisher or rotary buffer Mike Phillips and they'll pull right up.
No, I can guarantee that one. So with that being said, I know you got a whole bunch of stuff. And
yeah.
I see Rupes I guess they didn't want to carry this, aren't in the little carry-on?
We're gonna ship it to them.
Well, you know, as long as they get it.
Yeah. So let's start over here, though, Yancy. Since
Where are
we
you
have
going?
This is a Rupes. It's called Type Vander. Here, I'll hold this up, and you can zoom in where it says Vander. And I'll try to hold still too.
That would help.
This thing weighs about 20 pounds.
It's a heavy polisher.
It's an early rotary polisher, rotary buffer. I think those terms are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, that one is definitely for when men were men when they're polishing.
Oh yeah, this thing's heavy. And the weird thing about it, or cool thing about it, is it's got this little inspection
yeah, that's
lid,
a little
where you can actually inspect and see the armature and the brushes. Am I holding it at the right angle?
Yeah, you are. That's a little sketch.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
This is 500 watts and RPM 1500. And it's got a backing plate that made of nylon that says it's good to 8,500 RPM.
That's grinding.
That's grinding. Anyway, this was given to me by my friend down in New Zealand, Aaron. And I'm going to gift it to Rupes in Colorado for they'll probably, I guess, put it probably in their lobby just to showcase it.
Yeah, that's what Dylan was saying, that they have kind of like a showcase of all the painted polishers and other polishers that they have. So
I want to give it a good home. I'm trying to thin out my office before the big move.
AKA he's trying to liquidate stuff.
I'm trying to liquidate. And then I thought I'd share my rotary. This is actually the first variable speed. This is the
Oh, do you have a memory moment?
9207 SPC Makita. And
let me
here's the rotary dial right here.
Let me get in close.
That. And I used this for about 20 years detailing cars before all these cool orbitals we all
Show
talked
them where
about.
you actually polished it with the sweat off your hand.
Yeah, so let me grab a cloth. I see it's kind of smudgy, so let me clean it off here. I use this so much, and I never really paid attention then. One day I was looking at it, and if you look, well, let me show you this side. This is sand cast aluminum, so it's textured. Imagine a mold made of beach sand, and then you pour metal into it, like in this case aluminum, and so then you can form a product, but it imparts the texture of the sand, so it's called a sand casting. And if you look at this side, I wore it till it was smooth like a piece of chrome. And the handle had ribs on it.
It did.
It did. I don't know if you can zoom in on
I'm in it.
this. But I also wore the ribs off the handle. And that was basically...
So you were a handle guy at one time?
No. Let me even clarify, because we got some hoop handles or D handles here. And I'll make a case for
I know you
one.
like the first thing you do to any polisher is you get rid of the handle.
Well, no, sometimes handles are handy, but just from holding this like this and then running it all day long, I would wear a hole through my skin right here and right here, and then that's how I rub the aluminum off the thing without even knowing it over the years. And nowadays, of course, look at everything's got a rubber overmold.
Yeah.
So none of you guys can do this anymore. So I keep this around, but I ran it until I completely wore it out. Listen to this.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
The gears don't even engage. They just slip. So, and I always tell people, if you're going to take a class on how to use the rotary polisher, it's a good idea to take it from the class from someone that's actually used one. And
one that's actually wore out a polisher?
I can prove I've used one. I've actually never met anybody else that has a rotary they wore out. And physically wore out the gears, wore out the outside of it. Then next to this, I thought I'd share this. This is a antique mirror glaze buffing pad.
From Meguiar's.
From Meguiar's, yeah. So Meguiar's mirror glaze wool buffing pad.
Let me zoom in.
And this is the style. This isn't Velcro. This is almost like a burlap.
That's what I was about ready to ask you. That looks like a burlap. How did you attach that?
These had a big old nut with a big flat spot on it, and you would bolt onto your
make sure you don't go to that spot while you're
don't buff in the middle of the pad. So this is the mirror glaze heavy duty 7/8 hole, 8-inch diameter.
Let me ask you a question. Did you ever accidentally?
I don't know that I did. If I did, I have an article on that. Whenever you burn through someone's paint or leave a mark, you don't call it that. You call it leaving your signature.
Sure. All right. But no, so you never hit...
I've left my signature.
Okay. All right. That's a fluffy way to say yes.
I've left my signature a few times in my life. Well, the only way you learn sometimes is by making mistakes.
Well, true point.
Then back to the handle, since you brought it up. So this is called a D handle. If you look at it, it's
shaped like a
that
D.
way. It looks like a letter D. And here's the Rupes. And
handle,
theirs
hoop
has
handle.
a D handle too. They also have a stick handle. Here's my case for not using a handle. Is a lot of times, here's my case, is the further you get your hand away from the tool, on any polisher, the more you tax your muscles trying to control it. So in a perfect world, you're able to have your hand right on the handle and the head of the tool, so you don't, you're gonna be buffing for hours, so you're gonna tax your muscles. If you are gonna use a handle, I like a stick handle because I can take this off.
Quickly. That's the key word there,
and I can switch it to this side, or I can buff without it. With one of these D handles, you have to get your wrench out, so there goes quickly.
Yeah.
And there's no use in switching it. There's just handle or no handle. So no, I like a stick handle, but I also like it so if I don't want to use it, I can quickly take it off without a wrench.
Keyword, quickly.
So then I've got a bunch of different rotary polishers up here that are all in the market today that we sell. Here's the DeWalt 849X. And I can tell a little story about this. There was actually a time when a DeWalt rep joined the Autopia.org forum and started a thread asking for professional detailers for your input on if you could redesign a rotary, what would you like to see? I was a part of many guys that gave my input, and then a couple years later they showed up at Detail Fest and showed this off secretly because it wasn't even ready yet. So there's a little history behind the 849X that most people don't know. In fact, I still actually have private messages from the DeWalt rep in my account over at Autopia. This is the Udos, and of course it's a 5-in-1 tool, and one of the actions is rotary. This is the new Rupes that's launched a couple years ago. This is the LH19E. Very, very smooth rotary polisher, lightweight, compact in size. And I've got 2 of these in the shop, and of course we just finished my big 3-day detailing class, and I teach a dedicated rotary polisher session or class in the 3 days. And then on Sunday we always wet sand, cut and buff cars. For this last Sunday we had a 2019 Dodge 3500 Ram pickup with a custom purple paint job. Here you can see the purple here. It was single stage urethane, so there's obviously, after we sanded it, you're gonna get some purple. And then we had a 1948 Chevy Suburban street rod that was painted single stage urethane orange, and there's some orange paint coming off. And I'll show you how to clean these pads later, but it's okay to see the color of the paint on your pad if you're working on single stage. If you're working on base coat, clear coat, it's not a good sign.
Yeah, that's like an oops moment.
And then we've got the new Griot's Garage GR3 rotary polisher. And this is a compact, lightweight rotary, has a bunch of really cool features about it that we've already made a video on. And plus it comes with 2 different size extensions that you can use together or just use one at a time.
One or the other, yes.
Yeah, and it comes with a 3-inch, a 2-inch, and a 1-inch backing plate. And of course, Griot's makes all the different size pads for it, as well as a lot of other companies, you know, Buff and Shine, Lake Country, Rupes, Griot's. A lot of these companies now make just a huge selection of pads. Nothing like in the old days when all we had was this.
One with the nut.
The one that's held on by a big nut. Then we got the Pixie. And the Pixie is kind of cool. It comes with 3 different drive units, one of them being rotary. Only set up for 1-inch pad. In fact, if you ever take this apart, buy one of these, take it apart, you'll notice that in the rotary drive unit, there's a pin that comes up through the center, and the rotary backing plate has a hole in it. The 2-inch and 3-inch backing plates don't have that hole, so you're not supposed to mount them on there, because if you do and you try to buff with a 2 or 3-inch or 3.5-inch pad, you'll tend to burn through the paint because you'll have so much speed at the outer edges. And,
so they're thinking smart.
Safety. So Rupes did the same thing. The only backing plate set up for rotary is a 1-inch, and I'm not going to take this off, but they have the same thing. They got a little hole and a pin set up here, so you can't put the bigger backing plates on the green rotary drive unit to keep you from burning through paint. This is actually one of my favorite rotaries, is the Rupes Nano. It's just, with the long neck, is just so handy sometimes when you need to get into the tight areas and you don't want to work by hand.
Which Mike doesn't like doing.
What? No, no. So then we've got, this is the number 2 PE14. Can you zoom in on that tiny little number? The number 1 is in a glass case with Bob and Key, and Rupes gave me the number 2.
No, that's Flex.
I'm sorry, Flex.
You're welcome.
Anyway, and I keep this blue tape on here, and that's why you see different colors. This was an early model. I also own the number 1 PE14. I have it back here. The thing about it, though, is it's...
You're really going to dig through those?
Yeah, well, it's right here. But again, you'll see it's 2 different colors, so this was a prototype.
Yep.
Yeah, so, and it's also metric, because, you know, it was meant for the European markets. They sent it to me. So you have to put a metric backing plate on there. And then I got, of course, the cordless PE14, which is pretty much the only rotary I use nowadays. It's got all the power you need, and just the freedom of no cords is really nice. As we continue to move, you know, here's something I brought out here, Yancy. I do a lot of machine scrubbing. I teach a lot of machine scrubbing in my class. And, you know, once you get over the $500 price point of the PE14, which comes with the 2 5-amp batteries and the charger, and the best charge battery technology on the market, there's nothing like machine scrubbing tires. You know, at this last class, we had a 1977 Lincoln Town Coupe with a vinyl top that had not been cared for maybe in decades, and the class machine scrubbed it with the PE14s. So very versatile tool for machine scrubbing. And the benefit, of course, to machine scrubbing with a cordless is a lot of times you're around water and you're going to get shocked.
Yeah, that would hurt.
Yeah. So we had that going on. And then as we continue to go over this way.
And wait, there's more.
I had 2 ways to clean a pad on the fly, the spur. And
which we're going to get into each one of these. He's just kind of briefly overviewing everything.
Yep, and then getting them off the table. And then I've got what I'm going to teach today. If you're new to the rotary buffer, it's really simple to make it easy. And that's switch over from a large pad to a small pad. Get comfortable with how these tools work and operate and their characteristics with a small pad. And as your confidence increases, you can go up to larger, more aggressive pads. That's really the secret, Yancy, though, to learning to use rotaries, start out with a small pad. Not like miniature pad, but this is a 5.5 inch Lake Country Force hybrid. God, there's like 5 names on that pad. Foam pads. I mean,
let's just go 5.5 inch pad.
Yeah. And then, of course, some companies make dedicated rotary only pads. This is the Rupes coarse polishing pad. And it's very different from their DA system pads. And knowing the people at Rupes, there's a lot of design elements to this that separate the two pads. Offhand, I don't know exactly what they are, except for the visual, I could tell this doesn't have the contour profile to break down or break away when you go up on edge or get into corners that the rotary does, and that kind of makes sense. And then I'm not trying to single out Rupes, but I really like their twisted wool cutting pads for my boat detailing class.
I switched over when she showed me them. Those are really nice pads.
And what makes a really good twisted wool, if you really want to cut quick, heavy, what makes for a good twisted wool cutting pad is about 1.5 inch long fibers, which is what these are. Not too short. The shorter it is, the harder the pad. It doesn't feel good to buff, and it gets harder to clean. Too long, and you got fibers all over the place. And then you don't want it too dense. So I'm not sure what they do for a pile length, but this it's just not so dense. The denser it is, the harder the pad gets. And then again, it's hard. It doesn't feel good when you're buffing. It's hard. And it's harder to also to clean. So
it's like
I really
a Goldilocks. You need to find that perfect in the
middle. Well, I like their wool pads. And of course, they just launched their own line of backing plates in different sizes. I have them all here. I don't have them all up here. I got 1 or 2 different sizes.
Okay.
They've also launched a really nice.
Yeah, because you used them for the first time in the class, right?
Yeah, first time. This is their cut and finish wool polishing pad for rotary polishers. And this is a fiber pad, this is a fiber pad, but this is a short pile length, and it's a very refined, much silkier fiber.
Here, I'm zooming in, so don't move it.
Okay, so it'll cut really fast, but
turn it on its side, Will, for me a little.
Sure, it won't leave the deep hologram scratches like a twisted wool pad. So, you want to kind of gauge how much cut you need. The old saying, use the least aggressive process to get the job done. If you're just doing some light cutting, this would probably be a better choice than the old school twisted wool. And then I have a bunch of these pads over here that are dirty. I will show how to clean them with the cleaning tools, and also I've got 2 different pad washers set up here. I've got the Grit Guard pad washer, and I've also got the Lake Country 4000 pad washer.
The pad bidet.
Yeah, so we got a bunch of cleaning we can show here, and at some point, if you get a chance and I'm rambling on, maybe go grab one of them pad cleaning or boxes I have against the wall for holding dirt. I'll show why I keep those around. So
where are you going first?
I think one of the things I'll show first is just how easy it is to use smaller pads.
Okay.
And then real quick, there are some companies that have dedicated products just for the rotary. So a lot of people use the Perfect Finish here with a DA, and you can, I think you can use it by hand, but it was specifically designed for use with rotary. Of course, Rupes has their coarse and their fine, which are rotary only. And I think the cut and finish by Sonax, and then Meguiar's M100, I think, is rotary only. All of the 3M compounds and polishes on the labels, they say use with they say use at 1700 RPM, which implies a rotary. I don't think 3M has anything out there that says it can be used with a DA or by hand that I know of. So there are products out there that are more tuned to the action of the rotary and the heat they generate and the sling created by something that's just spinning in a pure circle. So just be aware of that. And of course, I always tell people if there's a brand that you already like, so if you're, say, a Rupes guy or a Sonax guy, then, do some investigative work if you're going to get into rotaries and see if they make a dedicated rotary compound or polish for what you want to do, for the polisher that you're going to buy. This is a training hood we have here for wet sanding, and we're going to be getting rid of this. So we're going to
torture it.
We thought we would torture it a little bit. By the way, I was just using that brand new Dr. Beasley's Prep Wash. Prep Wash.
Prep wash.
Kind of like Tempico.
Tempico.
And wow, that really cleaned that up nice. This is a brand new product we introduced at my class. It's for getting the car clean without leaving anything behind, like carnauba or SiO2 or graphene or polymers to make it shiny or protect it. Because if I'm doing a prep wash, I don't want to do those things. I just want to get the paint clean. I'm getting ready to do some paint correction. But I just used that and it worked really nice to clean that off. That's a little bonus in this video. So here's a question I get a lot, Yancy, is... Will
you do my car for free?
Yeah, we buff up my car for free. No, people will say, they'll be referencing a tool. For example, say I've got the Porter cable here. And they'll say, can you burn through the paint with a Porter cable? Well,
technically, yeah, you could.
There's a lot of factors that come into play when you talk about burning through paint. If the paint is already thin, I could burn through rubbing by hand, okay? So of course, then yes, I could burn through with the Porter cable because the paint was what I call whisper thin to start with. If you're working on paint, the way I like to describe it is it has all its integrity. So say you have a brand new car, no one's ever messed on it, it has all the original factory clear, then the chances are you're not gonna burn through or cut through or buff through the clear coat unless you're doing stupid stuff, you know? And we're gonna show you how to do stupid stuff.
Yeah, so do as we say, not as we're gonna show you later.
And something I thought was funny, I thought I would share was, so you know how a lot of us will mark our backing plates?
Oh, I know where you're going.
So we can monitor pad rotation. It just makes it easier for your eyes to see if the pad is rotating or not. Well, a couple years ago after one of my classes, I found this Rotary backing plate and someone had marked it.
They wanted to make sure it was rotating.
And the thing about a rotary polisher is it's gear driven.
It's going to rotate.
It's going to rotate no matter what. There's no need to mark the backing plate. And I was going to actually throw this away because I thought it would be embarrassing because someone might think,
no, it's a teaching moment.
I use it for a teaching moment, yeah. So then I guess the next thing we could talk about is
I don't know. You keep moving, Army.
How about
we
go to the cordless and just talk about using small pads.
Yeah, just start up like how do you apply your product and all that other good stuff.
Okay, so to put a backing plate on, basically you just want to spin it on just like that. You make sure it doesn't cross thread, and then later on to take it off, just whack it.
Yeah,
like
you don't need
side.
to like really grunt on it and get it really super tight because you'll have a pain in the butt getting it off.
Yeah, it'll tend to self-tighten on its own, and most of your rotary polishers, most have a lock mechanism like this one on the back, so you can push it down, it will engage the gears in here to lock it up so you can pull it off. There is one time in my life we had a backing plate that was on so tight we had to take a peanut grinder and a grinding disc and basically grind the thing off to get it off there. It just wasn't coming off any other way. So here's 3 pads from Lake Country in order of aggressiveness. Okay.
You thought you were going to play like 3-card Monte or something.
I'm doing it for the camera, not for me. But this is a Lake Country Force Hybrid orange foam cutting pad. And this would be white for polishing, black for finishing. So say you want to get into rotary polishing. This would be a really easy way to train yourself how to use one of these tools. So the first thing you want to do is get the right size backing plate. This is a 4 7/8 Lake Country backing plate. And this is a 5.5 inch pad. And the Velcro is actually matched to fit this pretty much exact. You know, it helps to have just a little bit oversized on your material, your loop side, so you can actually see when you're centering up the hook side, the backing plate side, and kind of make sure as you look down on it, it looks concentric or centered.
Now, is thick pads, thin pads better? What would you say would be the?
You know, when you're using foam on a rotary, somewhere in the middle. You don't want thin. Because your backing plates tend to be hard. It'll tend to be a little hoppy or grabby.
Okay.
Super thick. There's just no point to it.
They're just a sponge at that point.
Yeah, it's a big sponge at that time. I think these are about 1.25 inches. I noticed the new Rupes pads, and I always trust the Rupes people to do all their research. That looks like about 1 inch, maybe 1.25 inches.
Remember when we were in Germany at Automechanica and we saw those pads were about like 5 inches?
Oh my gosh. You know,
it was like 2 of those pads stacked together, and that was 1 pad.
In the early days of detailing, there was actually this really thick orange pad called the Swirl Buster that came out of Germany. And for the life of me, it was meant to be used on a free spinning DA. And if you were to ever actually put that on a free spinning DA, the volume, the massive foam would absorb all the power coming out of the tool and dissipate it, and you would get 0 pad rotation or oscillation for that matter. So it was a very short-lived pad, but I do remember seeing it for sale over here, never actually using one, only seeing pictures of it, and we go to Auto Mechanica and boom, we're at some guy's booth and there's the Swirl Buster.
Yeah, that thing was huge.
It was like this thick.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so throw your pad on there, and then, you know, we talk about using the 10 at 10 technique to pick up a strip of product.
That was on your other thing right there.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that. And that's true for your larger pads. But you know what? When you go to a smaller pad like this, you actually want to pick it up at the 9.
Okay.
9 or 3 or, you know, it's kind of
Well, before
relative.
you get into that, why don't you, some people might not know what you're talking about.
So let me demonstrate the 10 at 10, then I'll show you how to do it with the small pad. Okay, so 10 at 10. Is this a...
That's
okay,
the one.
So here Yancy has creatively put some clock markings. So 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and so on.
3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
And the idea being is what you want to do, and let me turn on this way, is when you go to... There's a term called picking up a bead of product or a strip of product. And the way that works is, you know, if this was your panel, you'd have your pad flat against the surface, you'd have your strip right here, and you would tilt this up about 10 degrees and run it at the 10 o'clock mark. And here's what's happening. The pad's spinning clockwise, and if I turn this around and I keep spinning it, and remember, you're bringing the strip in this way, because it's spinning this way, it'll tend to grab it and pull it into itself. Now, if you were to pick it up this way and the pad's spinning this way, it would hit the strip of product and splatter it
and
everywhere.
splatter.
Okay, and then when you get good at this, it becomes relative. Okay, so all you got to do is pick up your strip of product in such a way that it's being pulled into the pad, not being splattered out of the pad. So if you wanted to pick up a strip, say running up a panel on the side of a door, then remember this is running this way. So you wouldn't pick it up over here. You'd pick it up at about the 2 o'clock section. So you'd tilt it this towards you. And then as this thing's spinning this way and you run that strip in this way, it would tend to pull it in that way. And then if you wanted to go from left to right, instead of picking it up at 10, you'd pick it up down here at 4. So you'd tilt it this way, run your strip in. And remember, this is spinning clockwise, so that it would tend to pull it into itself. And then if you wanted to run down the paddle, here's your midnight, spinning this way, you'd pick it up at about the 7. So here's your strip. You'd run it like this way, and again, it would, as it's spinning this way, it'd pull in this way. So it's kind of hard to explain in the air.
Actually, you did pretty well.
Yeah, but it becomes real relative. And then
So in other words, you want it to go with the spin, not against the spin.
You want it to pick up, you know, with the spin of the pad. Otherwise, you're just going to throw it everywhere. And then there's a couple of reasons to learn how to use it's called the 10 at 10 technique, but you know, you can call it wherever you want to. A, you look cool, you know, using Rotary. You just lay down your strip, pick it up, get buffing. You're not like that hack guy that tries that because he doesn't know what he's doing and then throws stuff on the wall, the car, on himself.
With the toothbrush later on.
But it can speed you up, you know, if you're working on cars instead of, you know, you need a way to do things over and over again without thinking about it. So it's just a technique. Now, if there is another technique, if you're working, I teach this in my boat classes. If you're working on a vertical side, sometimes it can be hard to get a strip on there because you've got to get inertia going with it. You got to
gravity is working against you.
You got to kind of sling it and get that thing going. Otherwise, if you hold the bottle and pour it, it just goes on the ground. It doesn't go to the side. So if you're working on a vertical panel, you don't want to mess around with that. Always put it in a circle in the center of the pad. That way, when you put that against, you know, the panel, you trap that product in between the pad and the panel, turn it on slowly and kind of spread it around. If you put it out here on the outside edge, even if you turn it on slowly, it has a tendency to just go ahead and sling out because there's not enough mass of pad there to keep it trapped between the pad and the panel you're buffing. Make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay, so here's another little technique. Now, some pads, I'm going to put this on crooked. Notice there's no ink pen lines on this pad, okay? And some pads come with a line imprinted into the back that correlates with a known backing plate size so you can quickly look at it and center it up. And it's important to have your pad centered, otherwise you're basically buffing with the...
Oh, wow.
See how off I have that? Okay, and that's just going to shake you over the place. It's going to be really hard to hold this and do any kind of quality work at all.
Now, will that like inflict worse hologramming?
I don't know if it would help.
Really wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't help. It wouldn't really matter. But just the biggest thing is it's just not going to be smooth buffing. You want to get that pad as centered as possible. So here's one of the things I do. If I'm ever working with, and of course, you know, sometimes I'm using one company's backing plate and another company's pad, and that's all fine and well. But it's important to center. So the first time I use a pad like this, what I'll do is I'll get it centered, and to see if it's centered, just turn it on, and then to look to see if the pad's all cattywampus on you. And once you're happy like that, looks pretty good to me, I'll take an ink pen, and while it's spinning, I'll just hold the pin right against the pad around the backing plate.
So you're marking it.
I'll put my own mark on there.
Okay.
And then in the future, boom, see?
Look at you, so smart.
Now I know I don't have to spend time trying to center. I can just, there you go.
Never thought of that. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so
if you say that, you need to do it like Elvis. Come on.
Oh, oh, hey, hey. Okay, I'm looking for a pencil. I don't see one. I'll grab an ink pen. I usually lay down a strip when I'm using a full-size pad like this, and I refer to the pencil technique, and I think I have an article. If you were to type in pencil 10 at 10, Mike Phillips would probably pull it up. But if you look at this strip, it's a little bit bigger than the pencil, but this gives you an idea of how much product to put down with a full-size pad. Smaller pads, I mean, I don't want to use that much product with the 1-inch pad.
Oh, come on, man.
That would make a big mess everywhere. Okay, so then the 10 at 10 technique, you want me to do 10 at 10 or 10 at 4?
You can do whatever you want. I just wanted you to explain that. That's all.
Turn your speed down all the way. And
hold on. Let me get where I'm getting close up.
Okay, so here's laying the pad flat, and this is what I mean. Pick your pad up at 10 degrees. There's about 10 degrees. And as I'm looking down at this, here's midnight, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So picking your pad up using the 10 at 10 would look like this, and as soon as you get past that strip of product, lay it down flat, and go ahead and spread your product out. So that's the 10 at 10 technique, and I don't think I threw any anywhere.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
I was waiting.
Now, let me show you that going from left to right, what that would look like. Okay, there's my strip of product. Now I'm gonna turn this on. I'm laying it to this side, only instead of picking it up at say 2 o'clock, the pad's spinning this way, so I'm gonna pick it up at the 4 o'clock mark, like that. Then lay it down flat, spread your product out, start buffing.
Well, you threw a little bit. I think it might be because you had so much already on the pad in the first place.
So it becomes relative. So once you get really good at this, you know, how you put your strip on there just depends on the shape of the panel you're trying to buff it and how you're approaching it with your polisher.
Makes sense to me.
Now, this is controversial.
Uh-oh, here we go. What are we getting into? What am I going to have to explain?
How to hold the pad against the paint. Now, when you're using these larger twisted wool pads, most established, recognized authorities and companies always say the same thing. After you get your product on the panel, to hold the pad flat to the surface and buff. In a perfect world, you would do this. That way you'd have the largest footprint working for you, and theoretically, the scratch pattern called holograms you're putting in would be more equal because you have all the pressure spreading out over this entire huge section of your pad.
Which makes total sense.
It makes all good sense. The problem is that sounds really good on paper, like if you're reading it on the directions of a website or a bottle. But in the real world, what tends to happen as you're buffing, this side of the pad may grab and it kind of yanks you, and then in a second as you're moving around, this side
adjust and it grabs the other way.
It yanks you, and it just starts yanking you all over the place. So, you know, what I show people, and this is especially true in my boat classes. Now, you got to remember when you're buffing out a boat, the biggest section of the boat is the sides of the hull. And the sides of the hull don't go straight up and down. They usually have a V shape. So not only are you working on a vertical panel, but you're working on a vertical panel that's going away from you. So there's just nothing easy about buffing out the side of a boat. So you do want to make everything that you do. There I am saying do.
Yes.
Do everything
All
you do.
Who was it? It was Grant. He said that he was worried about me and my dad jokes. And then there's Mike with his dad joke right there.
You want to make sure everything that you do is easy on you because a lot of times you're buffing at a boat, unless you're lucky, you're by yourself. Maybe you're able to con your buddy into come over and helping you do it. But if you're by yourself and you're buffing out like an 18 to 30 foot boat and you're going down one side, you're gonna be tired after the first 30 minutes, and you still got this whole boat to do. So you want everything that you do to be as easy as you can. So what I teach guys is just go up on edge, okay? And now you've got a smaller footprint, okay? But it's easier on you, and I've never really noticed it took me any longer to buff anything out, but it's just so much easier to control that. I'm still fairly flat. I'm just up on edge a little bit.
So you're using about a third of the pad?
About a third of the pad, but I'm still cutting, and it's just super easy on me. So that's the technique I teach. Now, here's the controversial part. Is people will say, well, Mike, when you go up on edge like that, you're putting deeper holograms, scratches, which are the swirl pattern created by a rotary buffer, into the paint because you have more pressure to a smaller area. And in the old days, when you used compounds which we refer to as rocks in a bottle, that would be true because you would have two things putting a scratch pattern in. You would have the fibers, which are abrasives, okay? So that's putting in a scratch pattern, and you would have the grit that you fill in the compound. But whenever I teach a class out here, no matter whose product I'm using, I only use products I would use myself on a black car. This Pinnacle Advanced Compound, this feels like Jergens hand lotion. There's no grit, there's no particles that you can feel, so therefore you're not pushing anything into the paint. The only thing putting the hologram pattern in is the fibers. They're very shallow. They will buff out with any orbital polisher very fast. So, you know, everybody can kind of figure out how they want to do things. What I want to do is I want to get the job done. I want to make it easy on me, and I want to get professional results the first time. And I don't want to have to go back and do the job a second time. So, you know, so that's why I show that technique. And man, it's really easy for somebody making a YouTube video to hold a pad flat like that on a perfectly flat surface and buff for about 30 seconds. But when you go out in the garage and you got to do this for hours, do it for yourself and then come back here and go, yeah, that guy I watched, he was right. Okay, that would
Work
be me.
smarter, not harder sometimes.
Exactly. By the way, there were sanding marks up here and I took them all out.
Attaboy.
Okay, so that's how you do the 10 at 10. There's some more right here. So we got plenty. We can always
Well, I can't even see them. The angle, I can't see that.
We can always put more in. Okay, so that's called the 10 at 10 technique using a large pad. You know, let me take that pad off just by whacking it.
You know what? We totally jumped a section. I just thought of it.
What's that?
Now, why would you want to use a rotary over a forced or a random orbit?
Oh, you know,
I mean, what would be the general reason that you would say, all right, this is when they excel at?
Generally speaking,
We should have started with that.
the reason you would choose a rotary over any of your other tool options, so free spinning random orbital polisher, gear driven orbital polisher, traditional orbital polisher, working by hand, and then there is there's actually like a barrel style polisher. It's a drum polisher. Some guy took and put a rotary on side and stuck a drum coming off it and put these felt and wool pads on it, and you buff like this. So there's at least 5 different tool actions out there. But the reason you'd pick rotary in most cases is because you've got a lot of serious paint defects or boat defects, and you're trying to remove them as fast and as efficiently as you can.
Okay.
Well, some people would say you can do that faster with a long stroke orbital polisher.
On flat surfaces, I'd have to
On a
agree.
flat surface, probably, I would, you know, just depends on pads and compounds. The problem is tools like that tend to only work on big flat surfaces. In most cases, like for example, the two vehicles we wet sanded, okay, by hand, and then we had to go pull our sanding marks out. There's more than just the flat part of the door. You got to get by the edge of the door, around the mirror of the door handle, you got the A-pillar. There's just so many places where you can just take a wool pad and just go up on edge and just shove it wherever you want to go. Boom, pull the sanding marks out. Okay. So for me and the type of work I'm going to do, it's faster and efficient to use a gear-driven rotary polisher for removing deep defects or sanding marks fast and efficiently. And efficiently means, you know, my standard for myself is 100% defect removal. So if I wet sand a car, I need to get 100% of the sanding marks out, not 95 and leave some here or there, like that 34-3 window we had in my class had sanding marks everywhere in it, you know, from someone else's work, not ours. We fixed it. But that's one of the reasons to use a rotary.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't mean to get you off topic,
No,
but I
it's
just
okay.
thought
Then
that we
I talked about other things. There's other things. Some people say, can you use a rotary to machine sand headlights?
Yeah.
The answer is no. It's not sanding at that point. It's grinding.
I can see people asking that. I'm like, yeah, you want to replace your headlight?
I had a
because you have heat getting built up there, then that's gonna.
Well, and it's very aggressive. You
Yes.
put a sanding disc on a rotary buffer, it's no longer sanding, it's grinding. And so someone asked me one time if you could do it, and I said no, because if you take and you hold that at an angle just for a second, you will gouge.
Yeah, you're going to cut
deeper at an angle into the plastic, which is very soft. And of course, the person didn't believe me, so we had a rental car in my class. And
Sorry.
I says, here, you try. And with about 25 people watching, they tried their best. They tilted the polisher just for a brief moment. They gouged into the plastic and left this huge, like, half-moon gouge in there.
Yes, it turns it into a grinder.
Yeah, I was vindicated. You turned a sander into a grinder. And then, of course, the way you remove that, and I did, by the way, demonstrate how to remove it, you block sand it until the plastic's flat. And then there's an actual, what do you call it when there's a...
Concave?
Well,
Valley?
There's a, I think
Relief?
it's an audio term. There's a,
I was trying to help. I don't know where.
yeah,
you're
but
going.
there is a warble, and it's going to be it's a distortion.
Distortion. Okay.
But it's headlights. Who cares? It's rental car features.
It's
Okay,
not my
so
car.
now I put in a 5-inch pad, right?
Okay.
Okay, so now if I wanted to take and do the same thing, when you shrink your pad size down, you shrink your strip of product down, and now when I go from right to left, instead of picking up 10, I'm going to pick it up at 9. So I'll lock this into place, and then lay it down flat. So the 10 at 10 is something from the old days when all we had was big pads, and nowadays there's just so many small pads, so it's just something to be conscious of. If you're using smaller pads, use the 10 at 9, pick it up at 9.
Okay. Go ahead and turn that off for a sec.
Sure.
Now, we have somebody on here that's asked, who was it? Where was he at? They just asked a question. Seriously, they just asked a question. I'm sorry, I'm trying to dig through these comments. They're talking about 3-inch polishers. Now, could you the 10 at 10, does it even work with the 3-inch and the smaller, or is that more of a smudge?
You'd still pick it up at 9. So basically, when you're looking at your pad, you're picking it up at the center of the profile as you're running it into it. So a bigger pad, you'd be running it in at
a higher arc.
Well, this would be, I got to look at this the way you'd see it. So if you were looking down at your polisher, you'd be, here it turns on. You'd be running your strip in at 10 on a bigger pad, which would pull it into itself. But when you go to a smaller pad, just pick it up at the halfway point.
All right.
Whatever that would be. And then, of course, the whole point I was going to show this is, if you're new to the rotary polisher, using a smaller pad, it makes it very easy to learn how to use the tool. It isn't yanking me all over the place. I can hold it flat. I always like to do this. Whenever you're demonstrating something, if you can make it look easy, it probably is easy.
Yeah.
So this would be a good way to learn how to use the rotary, is to get yourself a 4, 4.5, 4 7/8 pad, and just get some smaller pads to start out with. And of course, you can get these in cutting and finishing and just any variant that you want.
Yeah, that's all variables. We're just going over technique, not so much the
It's a good way to learn how to use it, though. And in fact,
now, would you say if somebody's starting off, would it be better for them to start with a wool pad, a small wool pad, or a small foam pad?
Because most people, most of the population isn't working on, they're not removing sanding marks out of an entire car like you would at a body shop. You're just working on swirls and scratches and water spots. The normal defects detailers work on with orbitals. Mm-hmm. I would just stick with foam to train yourself. Once you get good, then once you get some practice, then you can start checking out some of the cool stuff like the Roop has new wool pads for rotary, not the twisted wool, but just the other wool pads. Yeah, here's one over here. These are also really super easy to use. Let me make sure I got the terminology. Cut and finish wool polishing pad for rotary polishers. Very, very simple to use, but a lot more cut than wool. So the reason I'm recommending, if you're new to this, to start out with some small foam pads is so you can get used to the tool, because if you start out right away with a wool pad, you've got a lot of, all those fibers are cutting.
Right.
You don't want to get yourself in a situation where, you know, you're taking too much clear coat off.
Yeah, just I think what really needs to be stated here is if you're working with a rotary, you can very quickly remove
a lot of paint
in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and that's if you're actually, you know, working the tool. We watched a video earlier today where the guys had 3 different tools, and they're just kind of holding them, let the weight of the tool do the work.
Right.
But in the real world, that's not how most people work on a car. If it's a long stroke polisher, it's just a little bit more than the weight of the tool. If it's a short stroke, either gear driven or free spinning, you're pushing down about 5 pounds. And with the rotary, you're usually pushing if you're cutting. So in the real world, you know, if you're really buffing out a car, you're pushing on that tool. And with the wool pad compared to a foam pad, you can take a lot of paint off real quickly, needlessly. So train yourself the characteristics of it with a small foam pad, and then teach yourself how to use a wool pad.
Okay, makes sense.
And then I think we were going to show how to twist paint and burn through the paint.
We're going to show you what not to do, kids.
So there's
disclaimer, do not do what we do now.
So there's a term called twisting the paint. Now, I've never tried to do this live on video camera, but
okay, well, first let's talk about...
I've done it before, just not on purpose.
All right, let's talk about how we are... What we're about ready to do is some of the things... Actually, let me bring myself up so that way I'm not a talking head from the nether. Oh, why can't I? Come on. I guess I can't come on. Actually, hold on. Let's go here.
Well, here's where this typically happens. Say you've got a small defect on the car.
Okay.
With any orbital polisher, you're not generating a lot of heat from the tool to the surface. With the rotary, you're generating a lot of heat in that one spot. So the mistake a lot of newbies would make when trying to take out an isolated defect with the rotary is they don't realize that they're creating a lot of heat there, and they don't pause and let that paint cool down. They just keep buffing until they see the defect go away. What happens is they heat that paint up, and that rotary will actually grab that paint and twist it.
Okay, now, do you want to talk about the fight or flight? All right, I'm going to bring you up right now. Your article's up on the...
And I love it, the guy with the fire in his hand.
Fire.
Okay, so when we were shooting this video today, we were looking for our
temperature gauge.
Our temperature gauge.
Laser temperature gauge.
Yeah, our laser thermo gun.
But the battery died, so sorry.
The battery died, so we couldn't do it, to tell you how hot things get. So a lot of times people don't have any way of measuring actual heat. So what I always show people is take the heat gauge you have with you. So like right here, I keep it with me. It's called my hand. Okay. And you should always be able to put your hand down on the paint and hold a conversation. If you go to put your hand down, like you're testing to see if you're getting the paint too hot, and your fight or flight instincts kick in, and you move your hand away and go, ow, okay, it's too hot. Let it cool down. And so that's the thing you want to do. If you're trying to take out an isolated defect, you would come down and buff, stop, wipe off, feel. Defect still there? Feel. Make sure it cools off a little bit, then buff. So it's kind of a buff little, let it cool a little, buff little, let it cool a little. If you just stay right on it, you're going to generate a lot of heat and probably twist the paint, and of course that's going to lead to burn through.
All right, so now that means we're going to do some stuff now.
So let me see if I can do it. I'd like to say I did this one time in front of about 25, 30 people.
Now remember, people, what we're about ready to do, we are not saying do this. We are showing you what can happen if you do things wrong.
Okay, so I'm going to put my product down there, and I just went ahead and put some in the center of the pad. I'll turn it up, spread my product around, and let's just go ahead and say I'm trying to remove a scratch right there.
Yeah.
I'm pushing down, by the way.
You're working it.
It's warm.
Okay.
It's not hot, just warm. Okay, now it's hot. It's not smoking yet.
Here, they're gonna mute him. That's awfully loud. Yeah, I don't see no smoke coming up yet.
It's getting hot. I think I can smell the paint or the solvents in the product.
All right.
That's too hot to put my hand on.
Okay.
But this is what a newbie would do. They would just keep
Sit there and
pressing
working
on
it and working
They're trying
it.
to get the scratch out. They're still there, come back and buff. Hey, it's there, come back and buff. And what's going to happen is there's going to come a point where the paint's just going to get too hot, and instead of abrading, it's going to move. I might be too good. I might not be able to do this. There we go.
I can smell it all the way over here now.
Okay, and I'll tip this up.
All right.
I'm starting to twist the paint.
All right, I need a light.
I have a light.
Because all I see is black oil. All right, tilt it up. Right there. All right, there's twisting the paint, people.
Yeah, and if I keep going, it'll twist that whole area. Just a big old splotchy twist. That paint is twisted. Now, some people may have done this out there wondering, can you recover from that? I have, but damn, you got to be good. So, like, I think the way I recovered is I lightly hand sanded with the high grit sandpaper. Back then, it would have been at the McGuire's corporate office at a detailing class for the Viper Club. I did this to the president's red Viper, trying to get a scratch out. So this is how I learned how to twist, what not to do. And I just lightly, I let it cool down, then I lightly sanded it, then I pulled my sanding marks out. And the rest of my life, I never held a pad in one place when removing isolated defects.
And we do have a dedicated video of how to correctly remove isolated RIDs, random isolated.
Yeah, well, there's
scratches.
actually safer ways to skin that cat. Like you could a machine sand with 5,000 grit, you know. So instead of running a rotary to remove the defect, level it with a sanding disc and then pull your sanding marks out.
Yep.
So
I think remember we did it. I think
back when I did this, Trizac had not been invented yet, so couldn't do it. Okay, so that's one way you could cause damage, is called twisting the paint. That's staying in one place, usually an isolated defect. Because, see, if I was moving the polisher back and forth like this, okay, if you're buffing out a section, when you get over here, the whole time you're not over here, that paint's cooling off. As you work your way back, the whole time you're not over here, that paint's cooling off. So that's kind of the difference. When you're working a section, the paint has time to cool. When you're just saying one area, there's no cooling period, so it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter. Boom, you twist the paint.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is burning the paint.
Woohoo!
And
Like
that
I
is
said, children, do
done,
not do this at home.
That is typically done with a fiber pad, but it could be done with a foam pad. Foam pads do tend to create more heat than fiber pads like this, because the cell structure of the foam becomes wet and holds the heat in, where the fibers, you know, there's air that can flow between these. So they can tend to run a lot cooler than, say, a foam cutting pad. Foam polishing pad, a little bit. Foam finishing pad, pretty soft. You never could really push that hard with the foam finishing pad to create enough heat to cause a problem, unless you're just doing it on purpose to be stupid, you know, so then for this, I'm wondering if we should just burn through an edge, because this is where most people do
Do
it.
the front lip. Going over that.
Oh, right here?
Yeah, can you do that?
I can do that.
All right. That way then it's something that's easily seen.
Let's hope this thing doesn't fly off. I got a lot of product on here because I've been picking up beads with it over and over again, but not actually using it. So let me kind of spread some of this around just to thin out. Okay. I'm on speed 3.
All right. Like, first off, this is something that you wouldn't do. You wouldn't want to go over the edge like this.
Yeah, don't do this.
But people do, you know? So, I mean...
One of the problems we could run into here is our painter puts just a boatload of paint on the
I was going to say, has that
one?
one been repainted or not? I'm going to drop him down. That's a little bit loud. I don't need to blow you guys' speakers out. But yeah, if this is one that
Have I burnt through, Yancy?
a little
Yes.
bit, it looks like.
Very, very easily burned through. So there's what a burn through would look like. That's primer, not product.
Yeah. Well, right now it looks like a highlight, so we're going to have you tilt it down just a touch. There you go, right there. See the white?
There's a burn through.
That's burned through. Actually, here, hold on. Ronaldo, I finally get to use it. There's the burn through. That line going down right there is burn through. This is highlight.
And here's the sign you never want to see, the color of the
Hold
paint
on.
on your pad.
Yeah, that's the no-no.
That's a bad sign. So anyway, in the real world, God, nobody should be buffing like that. But here's the problem.
People do.
Well, it's actually more complicated than that. When someone brings me a car to detail, if it's not brand new, right off the truck, right off the showroom floor, no one's ever touched it, we don't know who's worked on it in the past. Like some of the cars we get down here are older, 5 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, and it may have been buffed out multiple times over the course of its life by multiple detailers, maybe body shops doing some repair work, and you don't know if they're using quality compounds, which means quality abrasive technology. You don't know what they're using for tools. You don't know
their skill level.
You don't know their skill level. And so what happens is, if you get what I always call the caveman detailer who use, junk for compound or abrasive technology, use the wool pad on a Rotary, buffed out the car and did not burn through all the high points, the edges, but took a lot of paint off of them, so now they're whisper thin. You come along, you're using the safest products in the world with the free spinning random orbital polisher. You make one pass over it and boom, you go through.
Then you're the lucky contestant.
Yeah, well, you're gonna take the hit even though it was the other guy that did most of the damage, so that's why it's so important to just always use the least aggressive product to get the job done and start out any detail by doing a test spot.
Yep, power of the test spot. Okay, so with that being said, we've said the heat. All right, now the great debate. I'm gonna set you up on this one.
And I sent you the link to something else. Did it have relevancy?
Black car temperature of the sun.
Oh, yeah. So talking about what temperatures to get heat. Can you hand me my how-to book so
Yes.
people can see it?
I was bringing you up. You have your...
Yeah. So when I wrote the complete guide to a show car shine, there's a section in here for all the tools, but also Rotary. And let me just kind of read what I wrote in here.
Well, you don't have it memorized?
No. How to buff out your car step by step with a Rotary polisher. And on page 124, there's a section in the first column at the bottom called Destructive Polishing, Heating the Paint Up. And as we go over to the next column, it says Temperatures to Avoid. And I'm just going to read this so everybody gets the context. I asked two respected chemists, both good friends of mine, as well as two experts on paint technology and buffing procedures, for their opinions on what are the upper temperature levels to avoid while machine buffing. Their answers were all in a range from 160 degrees to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. So after reading that one time, someone said to me, well, Mike, black paint can reach the temperatures of 160 to 100 degrees out in the sun.
I have your picture up where it shows.
I went out and took pictures to show people that is true, but here's the difference. There's a difference between this black car sitting in the sun just getting hot and this paint getting hot because someone's pushing down with a pad, okay? So that's the difference. So out in the sun, of course, the paint and the car, the body panels will expand and then they'll contract as the day wears on and it cools off. With this, you're heating it up. Now you've expanded it and you're shoving abrasives and either fiber or foam into it.
You know what I just realized?
What's that?
The pictures in your article here?
Yeah?
That's my old BMW.
Yeah. There you go.
like, why does that look so familiar?
Anyway, so yeah, there's there's just differences between paint just being there getting hot, and paint getting hot because you're pushing on it.
Right.
And that's when you do destructive paint polishing.
Okay.
Okay.
Then Let's go over cleaning. We're at an hour.
Sure. Okay,
hour in there.
so real quick, when it comes to cleaning your pads, one method of cleaning your pad would be using a spur. This would be for wool pads, traditional twisted wool pads, and I'm going to try to get this down here so you can see it. I'm right-handed, so the way I do this is I lock this thing on my left leg. I bring my speed up. On the cordless, I bring it all the way up to the 6. And then you run your spur, kind of like a cowboy would have on the back of his boots. And this thing's spinning this way, so don't come over here. It'll want to throw it up into your eye. But start in the center, and then just go out. And a lot of times when I'm out here, Yancy, to keep all that stuff off the ground, I'll actually do it just like this.
Makes sense.
And what that does is it puts all the compound and the paint that's built up on the pad into a box all over the floor.
Okay.
I mean, you could walk outside and do it outside, but the idea is try to keep your shop clean.
All right, now, why would you use a spur and not a screwdriver?
That's the caveman technique.
I'm just
a lot of guys don't have a spur. These are $10 by a spur. A lot of guys will take a screwdriver, or I mean, realistically, you can take anything that's sharp. Here's a hook, for hanging your tools off a pegboard, and I could clean my pad on the fly with this. This is gonna work. This side will work. This side will work. Sometimes I use my thumbnail, and just kind of buzz over something. So there's, but really the spur is gonna clean the pad without tearing it up and lift up the fibers and just peel everything off.
And that's where using a screwdriver or something like that, you can tend, if you keep going in the same place, it could actually remove the remove the fibers and actually damage the pad.
What happens is when you use the old screwdriver technique, what happens
You have a story about this, don't you?
Yeah, I do. There'll be a sweet spot that your screwdriver will like to tend to go into and stay, and then every time you do this over again, pretty soon there becomes a trough there where all the fibers are missing, and you actually dig a hole through it. And I've seen that so many times in body shops because guys don't have spurs. The story I have has to do with someone real famous on TV. I don't want to tell it.
Okay.
So, okay.
Anyways, their shop, they have
So
it.
foam pad cleaning. Let's see, here's my foam pad.
And you don't use a spur and foam?
No, it will tear it up. You don't use a screwdriver either.
Just putting that out there, people.
The foam pad, you want to use this is called a pad conditioning brush. You could use an old toothbrush. I mean, usually a firm toothbrush.
Do you not use a metal brush?
No. But same thing, you want to just rest this against your leg, bring the speed up, and then run it from the inside out. And what this will do is clean off any excess product and also the paint that you're removing off the car. So anytime you're buffing on paint, you have two things that build up on the face of the pad. And it's the same stuff that you wipe off the panel, by the way. We always wipe the panel, but a lot of guys don't think about wiping or cleaning the pad, but it's removed paint and spent product that's used up.
Now, what about cleaning your pad on a fly with like a terry cloth towel or anything like that?
You can actually do that with the Rotary. You don't want to break your finger, but I've done that for years. This isn't a terry cloth towel. This is one of my paint care towels. But you could do it like this. Just take and push that in and actually pull some of that moisture out. And you'll see it build up. There's not much there to build up on your pad, but you could use a terry cloth. Or a rag of some sort, as long as it's clean. I've actually seen guys that will take chunks of shag carpet or carpeting,
wow,
and they'll nail it to the wall someplace, and then they'll bring their pad up there and they'll go like, I'm not saying I would do this, but
I was going to say, do you
this.
have like stories from the 70s here?
Oh, I've seen guys do this, that's their secret technique.
Wow.
So. Then we got two pad washers over here.
That's just insane. I couldn't.
Let me come over here and.
You're fine. You can just sit behind those. I got you.
Okay. So I have a bunch of these pads that were left over from my class. This one, as you can see, has purple paint. And I have both the System 4000 and the Grit Guard pad washer. For no reason at all, we'll just go here first. And the way these both work is they have a cleaning solution. In this case, it's actually the Marine 31 pad cleaning soap. And it's a citrus-based soap, so it tends to break up oily gunk that's on your pads. And the way this works is you're going to take and place the face of the pad down here and press on it. And as you press on it, it's going to inject this cleaning fluid up into the pad. And then I'll tilt this up, Yancy. And then it's got the smooth, like circular thing with these ribs, smooth ribs on it. And as the pad runs over it and the cleaning fluid's on there, it agitates it and it peels off a lot of the compound and paint or polish that's on your pads, wool or foam. So here's how it looks to start with. And then live, let me turn my speed down. I'll swing out some of the stuff.
The power of inertia.
Boom.
Look at you.
And then what I would do after I'm done cleaning out the pad washer, either one of them, is I would go ahead and spur it just to kind of refluff up all the fibers. And then theoretically, you're ready to go back to work. But my opinion and experience is pad washers are for the end of the day, not during the middle of a buff out, because just wet pads just don't seem to buff very good. Okay, so that was the purple car. Here's from the orange car. That was it's red. It was a kind of a burnt orange. It was a 1948 Chevy Suburban street rod. Now my class, this is a big street rod, by the way. And they completely sanded down and buffed it out. No mistake, so proud of them. And so now here's the grit guard pad washer, same kind of thing. Now this actually has a grit guard insert, then it has a small insert in the middle of it, and you can use it with or without. The idea being this kind of gets into the center, and you can run your pad over it, and you can also move it around on here, depending on the pad you're trying to clean. And then it's gonna work the same way. It's got these, they look like cups with a hole, and they got a spring in them. That's a stainless steel spring, so it won't rust. And it's sitting on what they call the, God, I used to know all the names of this thing.
That's a face.
What do they call this thing? It's this thing right here. It has a name.
It's a vortex or something like that.
Yes, it's the vortex something or other. And it's got these little rubber feet that you don't want to lose, because this is what keeps this whole thing from just spinning inside the bucket. Anyway, so this sits in here, and you got these 4 spring-loaded cups with a hole in them, and when you put this on here,
it pushes the water
pump
up.
this up and down, it injects the cleaning fluid into the pad, and then it squeegees against the grit guard insert there. And so that would look kind of like this. I always find, by the way, these work the best. They work with any tool, even like a cyclo. But they work the best if you've got them on an extension, just so the body of the tool
doesn't bottom out,
hit the bottom of the lid, the bucket. So here's a grit guard, or here's a Griot's extension. So to me, this would be a good way at the end of the day to clean your pads, then set them aside to air dry. Here at Autogeek, we go through so many pads on scale in our classes.
But we would not be doing that. We'd still be cleaning the first round.
Oh, I haven't even started yet, but I throw them in the wash machine and in the dryer. I don't throw my wool pads. I let them air dry out here. So actually on that cabinet right there. So here we go. So then lift it up, let the water kind of sling out. How's that look?
Very good.
Okay, then I do the same thing. I would spur it. So both these tools work great for cleaning your pads. You can spur them. You can use a nylon brush. Find a way that works best for you and your detailing style.
Oh, you gotta have a style. Okay, you gonna hang there?
I'll just hang right here.
All right, so with that being, hold on, let's just do a mental checklist. We went down different types of polishers. We went down pads. We went down bead, cleaning, what not to do. All right, one last thing before we go to the questions. Can you finish with a rotary?
Oh, sure. In my opinion, this is just my opinion based on experience. You know, anytime you're using a rotary and all the pad is doing is spinning in a circle, even if you're using something like a gold jeweling pad, the best abrasive technology in the world, that spinning action is just imparting a hologram, which I actually like to be really specific and say a hologram scratch pattern into the paint. The problem is you probably won't see it with your eyes because it's so fine, and the oils from the compound of the polish,
masking
by the
it.
time you wax it, it won't show up, even coat it, you won't see it. Now, over time, as the owner of a car washes it and doesn't take care of it like, us OCD detailers would, out in bright sun at noon, if you looked at it just right, you'd see the wispy 3D hologram lines that mimic the direction the buffer was moved over the paint. So I no longer argue with guys because I've met a lot of guys that are the god of the rotary buffer, and they will tell everybody that they can buff everything out with the rotary and leave it hologram free. And I like to just let those guys go. If that's you, then God bless you and have fun, and you're the best. I'll never argue with you. For me, what I say is start with the rotary and then finish with any brand of orbital. And the oscillating action of any brand of orbital will work out that hologram pattern so your eyes don't see that scratch pattern.
Well, I think it comes down to is also using the right tool for the job. You wouldn't use a screwdriver to remove a head bolt.
Yeah, no.
So that's basically what it's a tool. These are tools.
You'll use a 6-sided socket to remove a head bolt, by the way, in case you guys don't know, not 12-sided. Well, it's true. Hey, do what you want to do. But here's the thing I've always noticed about guys that like to brag how great they are with the rotary is they also are the guys that don't have the ability to share a picture to save their lives. If they do share a picture, it's a white car, dark at nighttime in the winter. The sun's not out. There's no way to see if there's a hologram. There's just no way to know. So, everybody can do what they want. But what I teach in my classes is it's okay to start with the rotary, just finish with the orbital. Yeah. And then you don't got to worry about it.
Exactly.
And it's also easier on you. But yeah, for the guys that want to do rotary only, go for it.
Okay. All right. So I do believe, we've covered everything.
By the way, in my last class, we went through 14 cars, and probably 4 or 5 of them all had holograms in them. Of course, we fixed them all too. This old black Corvette, when it got here, it had holograms in it.
And it still does.
Huh?
And it still does.
No, it doesn't have splatter. It has glass polishing splatter on it.
It's got stuff all over
Yeah.
it.
The class I told everybody is really messy and you should cover up the car before you polish glass, and they're like, yeah, whatever.
And they did it anyway.
Yeah, then I let a bunch of guys polish it, and I came in, and I was over here monitoring something going on here. I come over here, and they're all wiping down the seats. And I go, why are you wiping the seats? Well, we got splatter all over them. Really? Did I say that was going to happen? So then we stopped, and we wiped it off, and we covered everything up.
Learning moment. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to come over to here. I'm going to throw in a plug for the 10,000 prize pack. Once we hit 100,000 subscribers, one of you lucky subscribers is going to win $10,000 worth of polishes, compounds, pads, tools. Also a 2-day class.
3-day class.
3-day class with Mike. You're gonna have hotel stay coming. I mean,
everything but your
everything but you getting here.
Yeah, however you want to get here. Drive here.
Okay.
Fly here.
Then let's
take a boat here.
Take a boat. A slow boat.
Motorcycle.
But with that being
Moped.
said, I'm going to start teasing what we're going to be giving away. And Rupes is donating the nano, the long nano kit. So you're getting a nano as part of this prize pack.
This is one of my favorite tools.
Yeah. Dylan, I was talking with him while they were down here, and we're going to be doing a nano kit. So that's part of it. Okay, so with that being said, you guys know what time it is. It is time for viewer questions. Yes, you guys have been asking questions, and if you have a question, go ahead, put it in the comments down below, and we will kick this off. Let's get to the top as Mike's making some really loud noise. I'm going to drop him down.
I'll stop.
All right, you're good. All right.
Cool gift, though.
Oh, that is a really cool.
I get asked a lot, like, what are my favorite tools? And one of them is the Rupes Nano Long Neck. In rotary mode, there's just so many things you can do with it. One of the cool things I found I can do with it is if you've ever worked on a car that has anodized aluminum trim around windows.
No, that'd be perfect.
And you get water spots in that anodized trim. I've only found one thing that fixes that. Rupes Nano, their little micro wool pad, and Blackfire One Step. If you're getting stuck like that, try that combo. You'll find it works.
Okay. All right, listen, let me go through some of these real quick. We're going to get through some of the hellos and stuff. We have St. Hildis. Hello, Mike and Yancy. He's from Great Britain, it looks like. We have... Que pasa, que pasa? Hi from Mexico, my friends. We have Freddie Bello. Hello. We have, we have first from Puerto Rico, which that means Humberto. He's on here. We have Kyle Camus.
We had a father-son team here from Puerto Rico for my last class.
Oh, there you go. Yep. He's saying, hello, gentlemen. We have Saludos desde Colombia. I'm learning Portuguese or Colombian now. That's Offspring Car. We have Osvaldo. Saludos, brother Mike. Oslo de Baja.
I think he was in my Argentina class.
All right. Mike keeps moving on me.
I'm going back. I'm just moving for a second.
Okay. Then we have Bray Jard. Hey, from North Carolina. We have Marcus. Much love from Greece. We have AmeriPro Detailing giving us the rock sign. And we have Richard, our buddy Richard. Good afternoon, everyone, from the Midwest. My boss is sleeping at his desk, so I'm able to tune in today. Attaboy. Get them while they're sleeping.
2 great micro tools.
Yes.
Both offer rotary function.
All right, now let's get in here. We have Daniel coming in. Mike's the reason I don't use handles on anything. I have since 2008. Tried to use my 923 Makita a while back, just couldn't get used to it with the handles, so it lasted about 10 minutes. Yep. We have Christian, much love from the coastline. I don't know what coastline you're on, but it sounds like a pretty place if you're on the coast. And here's the comment I was looking for earlier. Grant, I'm not only afraid of Yancy's bad dad jokes. Keep up the good work. I said none. It was all that guy that said them on today. So I'm just saying it wasn't me. We have Tim, North Carolina, watching. Thank you for tuning in. Then we have John. I want to say it's John. Hello from my U.S. friends. Answer to your question is definitely not. I have a lot of machines and some of them rotary as 3M Makita 9227 CB. DeWalt and Flex, but not as much as Mike. He is the King Kong of machines. I guess he's going to the title of this video. Are you afraid of rotaries?
Yeah.
Actually, if you guys post down, if you guys are still watching, post. Tell me if you learned on a rotary, if you learned on an orbital. That'd be something.
I learned on rotary.
Let's go. You learned on rotary? Well, you're from the day where that's all there was.
Back in the old days, all there was the rotary, the cyclo, and the TOB.
All right, then we have Jose, have a Makita 9227. That's a popular one. Is that like the old, the newer ones?
No,
the
that's
newer
the newer one. We used to
it?
sell them here. We quit selling them because we don't sell enough. They just gather dust.
Okay, and he also has the, whoops, let me put that back up on there, and have the Rupes LH18ENS, which is that one right there. Had the DeWalt 849, but the one with the metal front, it would get hot.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever burn yourself?
No,
Did it ever get that
gets real hot. So,
yeah. All right, we have St. Hilda's PE.
That's the one time you could wear a glove.
Right?
We
know where that's
glove.
We have
Not a nitrile glove.
PE14 Flex, very nice. ShineMate. Have you ever used a ShineMate? The EP803.
Nope, haven't used one.
Okay.
We don't sell them, so I don't use them.
Okay. The tradition has been start with the DA, but what about learn initially with the rotary first?
Yeah, well, like I said, if you're learning with the rotary first, get smaller foam pads. Train yourself with something easy, then graduate to wool pads and large size pads.
Makes sense. We have Brandon giving us the okay, thumb. I'm glad you're tuning in. He's been waiting for this one, so I'm glad that you are enjoying this video. Hopefully you learned something. Let's go here. Details, Blenheim. Hey, Mike Yancy, good morning from New Zealand, guys.
There.
Love you some rotary action here. PE14 and cordless PE 150, my favorite polishers of the arsenal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Compact, lightweight size, quiet, smooth. They got stainless steel machined gears instead of stamped gears. That's why they're so quiet.
Okay, then we have Dane Thunder. You guys going to Southern Details Conference? I did answer you. Mike is going to be there. I think I'm not being there.
I'm scheduled to be there.
Yeah, he's scheduled to be there. We have Rami going on here. Mike, you are the best as always. I taught him everything he knows, Rami. I'm just saying, finally stuck. Helped is when I put duct tape on one ear and I whispered it in the other ear, then I put duct tape over that ear, then it stayed.
That's funny.
All right, there's a dad joke for you, Grant. Okay, Rodney, whoops, get on there. Good afternoon, guys. Finally had time to watch you guys live. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Vin's, and a bunch of letters. Vin's MBMPND Masterclass. This is kind of a masterclass.
Sometimes people comment and say the video's too long. Well, click away. Click away.
Hey, it's all right.
Go watch something else.
You can watch it in little segments if you want.
Yeah, we cover a lot of information. Something for everybody.
There it is. We have Anthony on here. What pad was that?
Pad?
I have no idea which. I think it was the one that you're demonstrating with. When we did the 10 at 10 technique.
Oh, this is a Lake Country. It has a part number on it. It's the 1.5" fiber one, so it's hard to read because it's so worn out. But it is the 41-125.
Okay.
And
that comes in different sizes, right?
Yeah, this is a 7.5. I used to use these all the time in my classes, and it is a great pad. It's a little denser than I tend to like, so I switched over to the Rupes pads.
Okay. Okay, and I know when this was said. Cajun Kevin, I love that name. Cajun Kevin, gonna catch me a gator. That's exactly how I use the rotary I have for the past 30 years. Works. That's when you were up on edge.
Oh, up on edge, yeah.
Okay, that's the only way I use it. I don't put it flat.
I don't hold it flat.
I like being able to control things. I don't like it to control me.
Exactly.
Alberto, could you please talk about the small rotary polishers 3-inch? I did bring that up, so he did get that on there.
Yeah, this Griot's garage unit over here. This is the GR3. Really, it's well designed, just like their Boss tools.
He was talking about 3-inch rotary using talk about small rotary polishers, 3-inch. So just small rotary.
Like these.
Yeah, that's what I was taking.
Yeah, well, these are real handy. Also, both the Pixie and the Nano.
But wouldn't using a 1-inch pad or a 2-inch pad on a full size pretty much be about the same as using a small for like scratch?
Well, these are just for
stuff?
doing small areas.
Right.
For edging, going around getting the edges. I actually, if you go to Google and type in edging Mike Phillips style, there's a 1928 Porsche that was black paint, heavily oxidized, and I edged all the panels with the Rupes Nano to clean them up. Then I just brought in a larger tool, and just so I was able to be real fast and sloppy getting the big areas. So there's all types of edging, but they're just for getting thin areas like A-pillars, getting around
places where you
mirrors.
couldn't get the bigger polish in.
Yeah, they're not for buffing out.
Hard to reach areas.
Yeah, hard to reach areas, thin panels, edging.
You wouldn't want to do a car with a Nano.
You don't try to do the whole car. No. In my last class, I think I saw somebody
trying to do that?
Working a pretty good sized panel with a 1-inch pad. I'm like, dude, you're going to be here forever.
We have other cars to get done.
We have other cars to get through.
Okay, Gabe, I need to practice the 10 at 2 technique. It's a 10 at 10 technique. Great demo.
10 at 10 and 10 at 4.
10 at 4.
The 10 degrees is always lifting your pad up, how far you lift it up. You hold it down flat and lift it up. Then the clock number would be depending
relative.
on
How
the
the
panel
pads.
and how you want to pick up the bead.
Okay. We have the professional. The professional. What is the best gear-driven polisher to start with?
Okay, so a lot of confusion. A rotary is gear-driven.
That it is.
Okay, it is gear-driven. And a lot of people talk about gear-driven polishers. Well, when they just say gear-driven, they're talking about a rotary, okay? When people are talking about the Rupes Millet or the Flex 3401, these are gear-driven, but the way they usually describe them is they say this is a forced rotation tool, meaning that it's forced rotation, but it's also forced oscillation. So they're leaving out 2 words. And so if you talk about a tool as being forced rotation, if that's all it is, that's a rotary polisher. Think about it.
Sure.
But what is the best, I'm going to assume he means what's the best gear-driven orbital?
Yeah, that's how I was.
So of the 3 that I know of, the Makita PO5000C, the Rupes Millet, and the Beast family of tools, the 3401, the Sea Beast, and the Super Beast, they're all very capable tools. Really, the one that's best is the one you like, My preference at this time, because we don't know what's on the horizon, is I like 8mm. So I like 8mm. The only company that makes an 8mm gear-driven tool that I know of or that we sell is the Flex versions. So I do have the Melee, I do have the Makita. They're both 5mm, and it's just not my preference. They both work. So that's one of the things people like about my class is you come here. I don't know if you can scan that mess all the way around here. But we go through all the different, popular tools on the market, and those are it's just a mess over there. There's cords, everything's just a big mess.
Yeah, it hasn't been cleaned up yet, people.
Haven't cleaned it up since the class. But you get a chance to play with all these, including the Melee and the Beast family, and make up your own mind. You use them on multiple cars.
Well, I think the reason why you use that too is because you use the cordless. You like cordless, so that way you can just stay in the same family, same batteries, same everything like that.
That could be true.
Okay, moving along, we have Oakland Auto Detail. If Mike tells you not to do something and you go ahead and do it anyway, you probably hurt yourself a lot when you were a kid. Awesome.
That's funny.
That's funny. Okay, here's a good one, actually. St. Hildis, what are the most common mistakes when using a rotary? Since you teach us, you probably see a lot of these. So what would you say the most common is?
One of the most common mistakes that we didn't cover is called how to buff off an edge. I'll turn this thing sideways and I'll demonstrate.
All right, let me get me
anytime
out
you're
of here.
working on next to or around an edge, let me take this off. There's a term called buffing off the edge. And that's the right way to handle that, is to buff off the edge. The wrong way is to buff into the edge. And you can actually go to Google and type in buffing off an edge, add my name, Mike Phillips, and pull my article up on it. And it has pictures showing you what to do and what not to do. But I will try to demonstrate what not to do right now.
So you're going to show them what to do. Show them what to do first, then show what not to do.
Yeah, and I don't know if this small pad would be the best way, but here's an edge.
All right, hold on. Let me.
Okay, when you look at your pad and the way it's spinning this way. It's easier to buff in a way that the pad is rolling off the edge. If I come over here and try to buff into it,
it's grabbing
it. It's digging into it. So one of the most common mistakes people make is, first of all, you don't buff off an edge, but of course at some point you gotta buff an edge. But just to come in lightly and buff off the edge, it doesn't yank, and this could be the edge too, or a high point. It's easier to buff here and have that pad fall off the edge or roll off the edge than it is to come to this side where the pad's spinning up into it, and look, it's just jerking all over the place. So that's one of the biggest mistakes guys make when they're new is not learning how to buff off an edge. The next would be fighting the polisher because you're trying to hold it flat instead of going up on edge. The next would be trying to finish with it. But other than that, I mean, it's really hard.
You staying in one spot too long?
Yeah, don't stay in a spot, you'll twist the paint. But there's just lots of basics that, watching a video like this, I think we covered most of them. And now go out and practice.
Okay.
That'd
be a good one, is not having the time behind the polisher. I mean, that's...
Well, what you want to do is get some experience, but don't get it on something that's important to you. Get it on like your mom and dad's car or your girlfriend's car. And then when you get really good, then go to your car. Or get a junk panel out of the wrecking yard like we got here.
Okay.
This, by the way, is called an X stand or a fender stand.
Oh, I'm not showing it.
They're about 40 or 50 bucks.
All right, Dominica, I think I said your name right. What speed and speed would you recommend? And also, how do you remove holograms efficiently?
Well, the speeds you want to use kind of depends on what you're trying to do, but I'm almost always nowadays using the cordless PE14. And the speed I'm usually on is anywhere on the 4 or 5, which is like the 1200 to 1300 RPM range, after using a slow speed to spread my product out. Sometimes I'm down on the 1 and 2, maybe 900, like machine scrubbing, vinyl or tires. You don't want high speeds for that.
For paint polishing around little over 1,000.
And then the best way to move holograms, is A, don't put them in the first place, and if you do put them in, or you're working on a car that someone else put them in, is do a test spot using the orbital polisher you already own and the abrasive technology you already own, and then pad selection, like start with the polishing pad, see if that with the orbital polisher will pull the holograms out. But you always start with the test spot.
Okay. Then we have Jay coming on here. I fooled around with the Rotary. I just don't trust it though. Why don't you trust it? You don't trust it, or you don't trust yourself?
We have so many great orbitals nowadays that, you know, I don't use rotaries very often, mostly just wet sanding, you know.
Okay.
There was a Ferrari I had down here. I did not want to use a rotary on it. I tried using the Beast on it. I just could not get, it just was leaving too many rids, and my expectations for the quality finish were much higher than that. So I went ahead and broke out the rotary and a twisted wheel pad and just nailed it.
Okay.
Then I came back and pulled all my holograms out with the Beast.
Okay, all right, let's go a little bit of a speed round here. All right, super effective. I have a new car. The paint is a great shape. The only thing where there's some water spots that aren't really coming off. Do you think I need a polisher, or should I try some kind of water spot remover first?
Well, you can try the water spot remover. There's a bunch out there that, you know, I've seen on Facebook that say they work really good. I had to see it in person. The problem with water spots is you need to define what type of water spot. Years ago, I wrote an article called Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3 water spots. Type 1 is when you've got dissolved minerals in water, and when the water evaporates, it leaves the minerals behind, and it's just some crusty stuff on the paint. Most people don't have a problem removing that. You can wash a car and it'll take them off. Type 2 is where there's something corrosive in the water, and as the water evaporates out, it gets a more concentrated corrosive element in there that actually etches the paint. And that kind, something you wipe on is not going to remove it. You're going to have to abrade the surface. A variation of that is called the imprint ring. Okay. And that's where water lands on someone's car like over and over again, and because they don't take care of it, the water gets comfortable where it lands each time, and it duplicates that, and over time the corrosive elements in the water actually leave a ring where every one of those spots are. That's called the imprint ring. And then the third type is where the water spot actually discolors the paint. That usually only happens with a single stage paint. So you get water that lands on, say, a red car, and you got these white spots, and that's down in the paint where it's actually physically changed the color. So most of the time when people say they have a problem with water spots, it's type 2, so it's either a crater etching or an imprint ring. And the only way to remove that's going to be, and usually to polish it or compound it. And cross your fingers you can get it out. You don't want to get any more aggressive than that.
Try
polishing.
Try polishing. Could you, well, depending on how many of you have, you could try doing it by hand. You know, if you just have like 5 of them, then you can get them out that way. But
yeah, a lot of times when people ask that question, my first question back to them is what kind of polisher do you own? And if you don't own a polisher and you're trying to work by hand, you're pretty limited to what you can do. You need to go ahead and switch over from hand polishing to machine polishing. Get a polisher.
Okay. I thought this one was hilarious. Koshi Lee, hey Mike, watching upside down, wrapping a Porsche.
Hey Koshi, how you doing,
should
bud?
we be like this?
That's funny. He's down in Texas, I think.
Okay, we have Rodney. Would it be ideal? What would be the ideal pad size to use on a rotary? Where I've worked, I've only ever used a 3M 05706 8-inch pad. I don't have a massive size. Try not to use the rotary.
Yeah, I'm not.
That's a big pad.
I'm not super. We sell the 3M. I don't use a lot of their stuff out here, but most of the 3M body shop stuff is all 8-inch. So.
Right. What would you say would be a good if you was wanting to?
You know, I'm usually in the 6-inch and 7-inch with my cordless PE14. Flex recommends not going over 8-inch. Okay. But I find the 7-inch and smaller are real easy to handle.
Okay. All right, we have Alex. This one's fun. Rotary Club for the win. All right, St. Hilda's, would you always measure the paint?
You know, it just depends. I got a paint thickness gauge. I got it out. It just depends. You know, I teach this in my classes. A paint thickness gauge is used as what I call a big picture indicator. It's going to help you to make the go or no-go decision. So if you measure paint and it's 4 mils or less, I don't want to get too aggressive with it. Now, there are exceptions. If it's a brand new car, the manufacturers are learning how to put less and less paint on the car overall. And so you still need 2 mils of clear, okay, to protect the entire paint system unless that's changed. That's historically been what it is. But they're finding ways to put less primer and less base, you know, the color on. Because if you're making cars in volume, if you can cut out a pint or a half a gallon or a cup on every car you poof out of the
add
assembly
up.
line.
Yeah,
it adds up to millions of dollars. So they don't want to put more paint on, they want to put less paint on. But in the big pictures, if it's an older car and the paint's thin, I use a paint thickness gauge to tell me not to sand it or compound it. I might polish it or use an AIO on it. If I have a car in front of me that has a custom paint job or it's brand new and I measure the paint thickness, no one else has worked on it, then I feel confident to compound. But that's what I mean. It's used to make the go or no go. It's a big picture indicator.
Okay.
You got really thin paint or really thick paint. But one thing I do know is you don't want to. I did almost all my detailing without a paint thickness gauge. I just used common sense and did a test spot. People got to get over this OCD thing where they got to get every single scratch out of the car. If it's a daily driver, why? Why? Get it good. Chances are if the car you're working on for some customer has a lot of swirls, scratches, water spots, that person didn't take care of it since they owned it. Now, if they bought it used, then ask them, hey, did you get a good deal? Now, people say, yeah, I got a good deal. Well, that's what you get for a good deal. Lots of water spots, swirls, and scratches. But for daily drivers, don't try to aim for perfection. Just get it good.
You went way off topic on that, but that's okay. All right, let me want to reel you back in here.
Okay.
All right.
I'm not trying to, just trying to be helpful.
I know. Speed round, remember. Mubada, I want to say that's how you say your name. Given similar foam pads, will the Rotary cut faster than a DA?
People have a different opinion of
Quickly.
that. It depends upon the person.
And how pressure and everything that you're doing.
So I know people can make the argument that a long stroke, free spinning, random orbital polisher can outcut a rotary buffer. But if you put these back in context, what are you working on and why? If I just want to sit here and put 3,000 sanding marks down here in a nice, easy, flat area, and then 3,000 here, and then test post, sure, the long stroke might pull them out faster. But in the real world, I don't do that. What I would do is I'd have a car that I would sand down, and now I get to get into all the nooks and crannies, and a long stroke polisher is going to get next to an edge or into a curve. And I want to knock that thing out. So I'm throwing a twisted wheel pad on a rotary, I'm getting after it. So I can get the job done. You got to understand, that car obviously has fresh paint and custom paint that's thicker.
Okay.
So keep things in context. Don't come up with these hypotheticals that no one's ever going to do.
All right. Speed round.
Hypotheticals.
Speed round.
I hate hypotheticals.
I'm trying to keep them. I'm trying to get through
I don't mind
questions.
answering them, but I don't like people trying to play gotcha and stuff.
No.
Not this guy, but other people.
All right.
Yeah.
Rob, learning a lot from you guys. Thank you from Pittsburgh, Mike and Yancy. You're welcome. That's the reason why we do this. Oh, I get to do my one. Dun, 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 Detailing Law UK. Hi, Mike and Yancy. Probably off topic this one, but would you advise steam for cleaning a car?
Not me. One time someone asked me if I would use a steam cleaner to wash a car, and my answer was not if any other option was available.
I know when you can do
running
it.
water to wash, rinse to wash, spray detailer, glass cleaner. If some other option was available, I would do that before a steam machine.
I know the perfect time to use a steam cleaner.
What's that?
In the middle of a blizzard and you have to get your car clean, you can use it to warm you and clean the car at the same time.
I don't know about that.
As you go to the glass.
I actually wrote a really definitive answer to that. I just don't know if I could ever find it.
Okay.
The answer is no.
All right, let's go here. Pad size. Thomas Kirby. Hey, Kirby. Pad size on the flex during the cleaning demo. That would be the ones from your class.
Yes.
What size?
I got 6-inch, 6.5 inch, and 7-inch. Rupes makes 3 different sizes, and I have them all out here. So when I have my class and I'm letting someone that's brand new to using a wool pad cut out sanding marks, I give them the little one. They can't cause any danger. It's a lot easier for them to use.
Okay. All right, let's move. We have Howard here. I can't seem to get scratches out of single stage paint. Best liquids to start and technique.
What color? White single stage is the hardest paint there is. And I don't know if I'd even try to get sanding marks out of white paint or any kind of marks. You'd just burn through the paint.
All right. Maybe hit us up in the comments and what do you call it? We'll
What's
get
the
back.
color of the paint? Because pigment type affects paint hardness when you're working on single stage.
There's a lot of variables there, so we'd actually
put in the comments and we'll check over the course of this week and next week.
Okay.
Or email me, mike.phillips@autogeek.net.
Yeah, that'd be the best. All right, here we go. We have Nick Patterson off topic, but one thing I'm missing in the swag shop are towels, like beach towels. It'd be cool to have them up on a holiday. Hello from Sweden. You know what? I'm going to check in there and see if they actually have towels. If they do, I'm going to make sure that
going down to the beach with an Autogeek towel instead of like your favorite beer or a big palm tree, the sun setting.
Come on, it's our logo. It'll be save a squirrel, not a swirl.
Okay.
You know, it could be that.
Or just, Autogeek with Ivan.
But hello from Sweden. Actually, that's a country I want to go to. I want to go to Sweden. We have Tony coming in. Hello from Mexico. Mexico City. Wow, you're way down there. Rami, the best of the best. All right. Sarah, how far are you away from 100,000? Let's see here. I can pull that up for you real quick.
We have people outside waiting to get in, too.
I know we do, and you're going
on
our well, I know who it is.
I know who it is, too. They want that Lotus.
They want the Lotus. We are almost 71,000 right now. And so we have gained in a little over a week almost 1,000 subscribers. So keep hitting that, keep hitting it. Wow, very nice. I'll be waiting. I think this is when I was talking about the contest. Okay, we have James here. Is the Rupes long neck better than the Flex PE, the 80?
For rotary work, I believe it is. I like the long neck for getting into tight areas, and to me, it's just the tool of choice. Now, one thing I'll let you know, the difference between the Rupes long neck and the short neck is 1 inch. So it's not like it's really long. It's just 1 inch. But the PE14, what I find is just because you got this head unit right here, it's a little bulkier, it's just sometimes harder to get into thin, tight areas like
where one excels the other one, it's like there's a balance. Because that one, I love how you can get the different mechanisms in and out.
Yeah.
That's simple. The other one, you have to get out the little tool.
Battery technology, second to none. But here's the thing.
All right, quickly.
If you were to whenever I post a write-up for the cars I personally detail, I always take a picture of everything I use, how many towels, how many pads, the chemicals, the tools. And here's what you'll usually see. You'll see both these tools there. So I'll use this in rotary mode, and I'll use this in orbital mode to remove the hologram. So I use them both, but that means you got to spend about $1,000 to get into them.
Okay, speed round. Less than 10 words. You heard it here, 10 words. Okay. SoCal Uber Dude. Nice to see you back on here. Can I use a random orbital polisher to remove holograms that was left by a rotary?
Yes.
Hey, one word.
Yes.
One word. Let's see here. Okay, this one's actually a good question. I think it's overlooked a lot. Matthew, should you generally use more product when using a rotary compared to like a DA?
Well, I always want to see a film of product on the surface. So that means I've got lubrication and abrasives. Okay. But you don't want to overdo it. So you have to find a balance. But one thing with the rotary is you do generate more heat, so you do want to make sure that you have, just like I said, a film on the surface that you're working with. Never go to a dry buff with the rotary.
Okay. Koshi Lee, see you at SEMA. I am hoping.
We're hoping.
We're hoping. Tyler, learned a lot on the rotary. I'm glad to help you guys out. And we have details from Blenheim. Learned a lot on rotary here. I'm glad that we are helping you out. Or learned on the rotary, sorry. That's must have been what I asked about that question. Tyler, what is TOB, which Mike just said?
Traditional orbital buffer. So that's the steering wheel kind, the really old school kind. They're pretty much useless. Nowadays we refer to them as wax spreaders because that's all they're good for. Okay, we have Sarah coming on here. I have ported cable as for now. We'll be upgrading after SDC. I guarantee you there's going to be some deals going on at SDC. I'll go get my TOB while you scan. Well, I'm trying to get to the end. All right, Rotary Club for the win. Another one. Yes, we have a bunch of Rotary Clubs in here. All right, well, you may not see Mike, but he can still hear. Mark Moore, hi from the UK. I've been a Rotary user for a few years, but recently I got the new DeWalt cordless DA and love it. Great info. Have you used the... I have one. All right, you have one? Okay. The difference is the flex battery technology kills it. Okay. The battery lasts longer and they recharge faster and they recharge more. You get more charges out of them. Here's a TOB. Okay. Looks like a steering wheel. All right. It's got an on-off button. All right. Bonnets on them. Offspring cars speak Spanish only enough to get me in trouble. If you're needing it, we do have some people online. If you call in, if you're looking for product recommendations and stuff like that, we do have people that are Spanish speaking on the phones.
I know enough to get me in trouble. Let's go here. Russ Adams, I don't have a rotary. I was afraid of burning through. I need one though. Which one?
You know, if it was me, my favorite's the cordless PE14. You can do anything with it, and you
It
can
all
use
depends
it
on
for
your
wet
budget.
work without getting shocked.
I mean, the GR3, I've used that one. That's a good little tool. Yeah. It's cheaper than the Flex and the Rupes tool, so it all depends on your budget. But Rupes, Flex, and Grills, they all have good. I would say they. Yeah,
when you're looking at cordless tools.
Well, he didn't say cordless.
But I'm just saying, if you are, the thing you have to look at is not only how long does the battery last, but how long does it take to recharge a battery?
Okay. All right, now we have Johnny Pena. I learned on a rotary polisher. Okay, Howard's coming on here. Did these same techniques work on single stage paint or only base coat, clear coat?
Everything I showed here could use on anything, including gel coat and plastic.
Okay. We have Kelly, thanks for the video class from a student of Ed Terwilliger.
Ed Terwilliger. Ed Terwilliger's probably the person that's been in the detailing world teaching formal classes longer than anybody I know of, and was inducted into the IDA Hall of Fame last year.
Okay.
And a personal friend of mine, and I've always felt so grateful that a couple times he's asked me to take his place and teach his normal college classes.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. James Brown.
Good guy.
James, get on down. Get on down. We got James Brown.
James Brown.
Thanks for the info, bro. All right. I had to do it. Sorry. You knew it was coming, right, people? All right. Robert Lee. How do I prevent holograms when doing swirl removal with a DA polisher?
So, DA polishers do not impart holograms. So there's your first problem. They impart micromarring, and you can see a shadow pattern. But as you know, one of the things you always have to do, we have to have very distinct meanings for the words we use. So when we're talking to each other, we know what we're talking about. Orbital polishers do not impart holograms. Hologram is specific to the rotary. If you're seeing a problem with an orbital, chances are you're using horrible abrasive technology.
You're putting swirls in,
you're putting in tick marks and or DA marks or DA haze, but it's not a hologram scratch. It's micromarring. And you probably need to change whatever you're using for abrasive technology. So not everything on the market is good. We did a video on it, a live class on that, and I took 3 products, and I took Perfect Black paint, and all 3 of them micromarred the paint. And they're things you can buy right now.
Yep.
Okay?
All right, so...
I only show stuff that I trust and I would use on a black car. Only in my classes and on my own work.
Okay. We have WD Brought. Thanks for the free lessons. I wasn't around for a few months, and this is one of the things I missed the most was the show. Well, thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
I've been catching up since I got back. Will from Southern California.
Right on.
SoCal in the house.
I lived in SoCal. Weather's nice out there.
All right, we have Andrew here.
That's the only thing.
IDA UK, AB detail started with Rotary and ORB, cleaning cars for 4 years. Hope all's well with you guys. It is good. Robert D. Trelizzi, he's calling you out.
Whatever.
Robert,
hey, Robert.
I love that you did this. What was the last time you burnt through paint?
What's the last time I did what?
When was the last time you burnt paint?
Oh, the last time. God, I hate to say it, but it was on a friend of mine's black car. But the thing is so many people have detailed this car before me that it just had thin spots everywhere.
Okay.
So.
All right, JT, it happens.
But Robert, I got an article on this, and it's called Signature, Don't Leave One. So type this into Google, Signature, Don't Leave One, add Mike Phillips. And what it says is when I burn through, I don't call it a burn through, I call it my signature.
Okay, yeah, that's a fluffy word for oops. JT, first time catching your live detailing class. Glad that you're tuning in. Hey, subscribe, you could win $10,000 or $10,000 worth of prizes. WD Barat, I want to get the GR3 because it's a lot of power. I'm sure you can spin a 5-inch pad. Yes, you can. Do you
We actually used it to pull standing marks out of this Lotus at my last class.
All right.
Here's the pad we used.
All right, Tyler, very good info. Very good info. I never thought of it that way. I don't know what you thought of that way, but I'm glad that you think of it differently now. Richard coming on here. Mike, considering the rotary only detailers you have talked about, any idea what special techniques and or equipment they use on their final polishing step or theoretically achieve hologram-free finishes?
Any random orbital.
No, the people that finish it and say that they can finish out.
Well, yeah, they're using a soft foam pad.
And like a jeweling wax or something?
An ultra fine polish or a jeweling wax. Okay. Yeah, one of those. Yeah, I've got pictures of write-ups I've done Rotary only on. There's no holograms that we can see.
Okay.
So, you know, hey.
All right, I'm a GT3. Would it be a good practice to use a compound with a rotary, a polished with a DA, or am I overthinking it?
It'd be a good combo.
See, you're not overthinking it.
Be the right combo.
We're teaching you right. Okay, we have Rochina, car detail. Congratulations, you are the best, watching from Brazil.
Right on, Brazil.
We need to go to Brazil. When's Carnival there? Or isn't they have the Carnival or something like that? All right, I'm gonna just try to find one other one.
Almost done. You can come in if you're quiet.
Okay, all right, hold it, Mike, all right. All right, this is like kind of a two-part. Dave Gallagher. Is a small porta-cable a good spinning orbital tool? By the way, I thank you for sharing your knowledge. By the way, I'm in northern Massachusetts, lousy detailing environment for daily use car.
Yeah.
In other words, can we get and maintain the level of excellence you get?
Yeah, you know, porta-cable is a very capable tool, but the thing you got to do is A, get a 5-inch backing plate, and then B, get thinner pads, whether they're microfiber or foam. But with that tool, because it's short stroke, it's actually easier to maintain pad rotation than long strokes because the outer edge of the pad does not have leverage over the reciprocating components of the tool itself. Very capable tool and built like a tank, you know. So the thing I always tell people is if you spend enough time behind any tool, you can make a dance on paint. It's your job to start spending the time, but also make sure you always use great abrasive technology, match the right pad for the job you're trying to do, and then with the porta cable, you know, obviously get thinner pads, you know, 5.5-inch pads is a good size.
Thinner pad.
Don't get thick pads. Like this here pad would be too thick for the porta cable. Look how thick that is. So,
Thin is in.
thin is in. I wrote that article.
I know you did.
Thin is in.
All right, so let me go ahead and...
I've brought out the first foam pads. They're about this thick, and they just will not spin on a porta cable. What happens is all that thick foam absorbs the energy coming out of the tool, and it just shows up to you and me in our eyes as no pad rotation. And when you're using a free spinning random orbital polisher, look, you're going to get the best defect removal if the pad is both rotating and oscillating. And that's why we do simple things like mark the back of the backing plate to make it easy for your eyes to see if the pad is rotating or stalling out or just vibrating or jiggling against the paint.
Especially when you're using a rotary, mark the backing.
Yeah. Are we done?
We are done. And thank you all for tuning in. We had tons of people on there. We have quite a few still on there, hanging out towards the end. I appreciate each and every one of you. Mike appreciates each and every one of you, and he will make sure that he sends you all $100 for everyone that's tuning in, right? Right? You make the big bucks.
I'm driving out of here now.
He's driving out. But no, if you didn't notice, if you didn't see before, look down in the comments down below. We are having a contest going on where you can win. So definitely look down below. And if you haven't liked, subscribed, you haven't told your buddies, told your friends or anything like that, please do so. Hit the bell. And like always, we have no idea what we're doing next week. We kind of spitball it all through the week. Then usually the day before or the day of, we like, all right, that's what we're going to go with. Because we're kind of trying to see what you guys are talking about out there in the world right now. So that's kind of how we base
also
everything.
Depends if there's something in the garage to work on. So I know I've got a Mercedes-Benz coming in, real high end. It's a, I forget what it is. It's something S550. So something really cool. We'll figure out something.
Yeah, but like always, we're here every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that being said, I think you need a bigger pad for this. So, you know, you got all day. Go ahead.
Yeah, don't use pads this big on tools this small.